The main objective of all scientists is to discover how our universe operates on micro and macro levels, ranging from particles to galaxy superclusters, pushing our species forward and comprehending the mysteries of nature and helping us bend its rules to our will. Most scientists contribute at these ultimate goals by adding small pieces to the puzzle, hoping that eventually we will paint a complete picture of the universal machinery. However, there are some extraordinary scientists that reveal that the picture we once thought was painted on a puzzle is completely wrong and demolish our previous understanding of huge phenomena like our significance as a species in this world. Those great people showed us that the road to our goal is much more challenging and that the universe is much more sophisticated than we could ever imagine. In the first video of this new series, we will explore the top 10 scientists that changed our view of the world, forced us to reconstruct our philosophy, and took us one step away from oversimplification. Welcome to the top 10 scientists that revolutionized our perception of the universe. Number 10. Stephen Hawking. On the last spot on our list, but definitely not the least, we have the physicist and cosmologist Stephen Hawking. You have probably heard about him, even if you have no interest in physics, since he was living among us recently and died just 2 years ago. Also, you may know him because of the movie The Theory of Everything, where he was played by Eddie Redmayne. On the contrary though, you may not know, like most people, his contribution in changing the philosophy of the world. Aside from publishing the New York's bestseller book A Brief History of Time, Hawking spent most of his time working on black holes. Black holes have been thought to be immortal, eternal prisons for energy as they sucked matter throughout their lifetimes that violated many laws of physics. But it also gave people the impression that those dark vacuums will stay in the universe forever, sucking up energy and never returning it. Here, where Hawking comes in, Hawking proved by what is called Hawking's radiation that black holes actually die by releasing small amounts of energy for an extremely long period of time, where the lifespan of the largest black holes can be estimated to be over 2 Google years, which is a number we can't even imagine. So, by proving that, Hawking showed us that the universe actually has an end, where it literally fades away into oblivion, which is a really boring, depressing end for our magnificent universe, to be honest. The fact that even the universe has an end left a huge mark and impacted our philosophy deeply. Number 9. John Dalton. On number 9 comes the chemist, physicist, and meteorologist John Dalton, responsible for the famous atomic theory. This man reintroduced the once ignored philosophical theory that was coined by the pre-Socratic philosopher Democritus in 450 BC to chemistry. Democritus suggested in 450 BC that everything in the universe is made out of indivisible atoms and void. But his theory was purely philosophical and didn't have any evidence to support his extraordinary claim at the time. However, what Dalton did is proving that this theory is not metaphysical but has scientific grounds. He was the first one to describe all matter in terms of atoms. Obviously, the periodic table wasn't published at this time, so all the elements, which are basically different types of atoms, weren't fully understood. But thanks to him, in the first decade of the 1800s, humanity had scientifically proven that all matter in the universe were made out of the same chemically indivisible units, which their properties varies according to their types. Later, it was discovered that atoms are actually divisible, but that's a topic for another scientist. Number 8. Rosalind Franklin. And here comes the first non-physicist on our list, Rosalind Franklin. Unfortunately, Franklin is not well known, at least between non-biologists. The most known scientists for discovering the structure of DNA are James Watson and Francis Crick, who won the Nobel Prize for it in 1962. However, we placed Franklin here on our list instead of them. Why did we do that? Because although they did some research needed for the discovery of the structure of the molecule of life, they could have not done it without Franklin's Photo 51. Photo 51 was her DNA X-ray crystallography image that she worked for literally 100 hours just to produce, and approximately 1 year to analyze its results. Her Photo 51 was stolen from her and showed to Watson and Crick, which made them easily jump into conclusions of the DNA structure. Franklin later died of cancer due to her continuous exposure to X-rays during her research, never knowing that her image was stolen from her. But she left behind the structure of the molecule responsible for all the diversity of life on Earth. Later, we concluded that all information responsible for our existence, function, looks, and personality is coded in this structure, which can be manipulated to our will. Number 7. Albert Einstein. On our list, the well-known genius of the 20th century, Albert Einstein, is placed at number 7. How could we ever do this and not place him at number 1? Well, simply let us remind you that this list is not based on the contribution of scientists in science or their IQ, but is more based on their contribution in the world's philosophy. So as you may know, Einstein was the second physicist to revolutionize physics after Newton. He introduced special relativity first, which didn't include an explanation for gravity, but proposed that the speed of light is constant and that time and space together change according to it. Hence, these two quantities are proved to be variable. He later then introduced his theory of general relativity, which as you may have guessed included gravity. This second theory is the one that proposed the idea of the space-time fabric and pointed out that gravity is not a force, but is rather the curvature of this fabric caused by heavy masses. This curvature affects the pathway of light, bending it. This, as you can see, destroyed previous quantities that we thought to be obsolete, like space and time, and showed us that the perception of this universe is much more subjective or relative to our experience than we thought. Number 6. Max Planck. Coming at number 6 is the theoretical physicist Max Planck. Planck was the first one to give rise to the hellish field of the physics world, quantum physics, when he published his quantum theory in the 1900s. This was the third turning point of physics, the one that proved most of the physicists back at the time that thought that physics was finished wrong, including Lord Kelvin, who said that there is nothing new to be discovered in physics now. The quantum theory is too complicated even for physicists to explain, so it will be really hard for biologists like us to elaborate. But we can oversimplify and say that the theory states that every single thing in the universe, including matter and forces, is composed of elementary particles. These particles, which include photons and electrons for example, have some definite properties like spin and are now placed in what is known as the Standard Model, which is roughly like the periodic table but for physicists. This theory surely revolutionized physics but also altered our universal insight, as it introduced many fundamental constants which can be thought as the language that nature uses to build the universe. Number 5. Nicholas Copernicus. And here comes at number 5, the first man to belittle a position of Earth in the heaven. Nicholas Copernicus. This mathematician was the one of the horsemen of the Renaissance era that revived the human race from their ignorance. Copernicus was the scientist that claimed that the sun, rather than the Earth, is in the middle of the solar system, which was thought to be the whole universe back then. What he proposed was so crazy, first-of-time concept. In fact, the concept was so revolutionary to the point that he feared to publish it because of the Catholic Church, which really loved the old Aristotelian geocentric model of the universe, which placed the Earth in the middle, as the priests thought that it agreed more with their religion. Copernicus' book, De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium, that contained the new heliocentric model of the universe, was published just before his death and triggered what is known as the Copernican scientific revolution. The world has never been the same since. Number 4. Edwin Hubble. On number 4, we have the cosmologist and astronomer Edwin Hubble. Hubble had two great achievements that made all humanity rethink their position in this universe. He didn't only discover that there are other galaxies in the universe and that our galaxy isn't special at all, which was enough to destroy our primate ego, I think, after Copernicus, but he also discovered that these numerous galaxies were moving away from each other because the universe is expanding. He proved that by using complicated calculations on the light produced by stars of other galaxies and its redshift, which is the reduction of its frequency when traveling long distances. This man completely shattered the perception of Earth's position in our minds, which had a great impact on our philosophy, and as mentioned earlier, on our ego. Number 3. Isaac Newton. Now we have reached the top 3. On the third place is the public figure of the scientific revolution, the one who created his own math so he can do his own physics, the great Isaac Newton. We can literally write books of how this man influenced the world, but let's give you a brief. Newton is famous for developing the laws of motion and gravitation, which he used in explaining a great spectrum of natural phenomena, including the motion of planets, comets, and tides. He was one of the most significant people that guided Europe to the Age of Reason, the Age of Enlightenment, where philosophy shifted dramatically, and the scientific methodology began to dominate. Number 2. Charles Darwin. On the second place on our list, we have the most controversial biologist and geologist of all time, Charles Darwin. Remember Copernicus and Hubble? They made our planet Earth and our galaxy, Milky Way, lose their sacred positions in the universe, right? Well, Darwin made the human race lose its sacred positions between living organisms on Earth. He did this by proposing the theory of evolution that made sense of all the diversity, yet the similarity of life on Earth. This theory is now one of the bases of biological sciences, and back then it stated that all species of life have descended over time from common ancestors by the selection of the fittest ones to survive, which is known as the process of natural selection. The theory also evolved over time and was accurately adjusted since it was widely accepted by biologists. But the important thing to us in this video is that it critically shocked humanity by showing that it was yet another species that is only on Earth because of adaptations of their ancestors. Number 1. Werner Heisenberg. Now, for the moment we have been waiting for, the scientist who was on the first position of our list due to his theory that changed everything, Werner Heisenberg. Planck may have invented the hellish field of quantum mechanics, but the scientist who actually made this field a total nightmare is Heisenberg by his uncertainty principle. The principle simply proved that we can never know the position of a particle and its velocity at the same time. The more accurately we measure a particle's location, the more its speed gets disturbed and vice versa. This weirdly introduced uncertainty in the fundamentals of the universe, which was something so new to science, and in the opinions of some philosophers of science, it destroyed determinism, as it shows that the events at the micro levels of the universe have different probabilities, and we could never be perfectly certain of which one will occur, but we can only calculate their probabilities. Thank you for watching. We hope that you enjoyed the first video of this new series. If you have any other ideas for future top 10 videos, please leave them in the comment section down below. Note that the order on this list is clearly arbitrary and based purely on our opinion. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends and family if you learned something new.